So you thought Avatar was the best example of computer graphics in movies? Oh my god, you don't even know. The Jungle Book. First of all, I have a total disclaimer with this movie. Like many people, I grew up watching old Disney classics, and I too have some of my favorites. And I have to be completely honest, despite how many people enjoyed the old 1967 version of The Jungle Book, it wasn't particularly my most favorite Disney classic. I preferred some of the more new age type of Disneys from like the 90s, things like Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. And Jungle Book is something that didn't really stick with me. It wasn't anywhere even close to my top 5 Disney movies as far as I can say on that matter. But with all the remakes that Disney is doing, for some reason the Jungle Book trailer is the one that seemed to jump out at me the most. I was just really interested in trying to see this movie, mainly because, I mean, we can always argue for nostalgia purposes, but also because I was really interested to see if they could do something real cool and interesting with the story that would hook me, unlike how the old one didn't, if that made any sense. So where to start off? Oh my gosh, this movie. First of all, with some of the initial screenings that happened in this movie, which I think it had initial screens as early as April 5th in several theaters in California, it was getting very good reviews, but mainly only the real reason why it was getting good reviews was because of the incorporation of CG in this movie. This movie was entirely filmed in LA on a set. They never used live animals. They never used very few actual outdoor pieces. They never traveled outside the continental US. And besides a few extras, there's only one actual human in the entire that was actually filmed in the entirety of this film. So that being said, the CG is quite amazing. I often second guessed myself of what I was actually watching, whether it was actual real scenery that I was watching or if it was CG. But no, seriously, no kidding, 95% of this movie is CG, which is an incredible feat, in my opinion. One other thing I have to talk about this movie without really going too much into spoilers is that it doesn't really depart much from the original 1967 movie, apart from a few minor changes, obviously. I can say that for the most part, the voice acting for this movie was actually pretty good. I was kind of nervous when I saw the casting list as far as who's going to do some of the voiceover work for a lot of the animals in this movie, but they seemed to pull it off real well. Bill Murray as Baloo was very good. Kingsley as Bagheera was very good, and then all the other actors, as far as their voice work, was very good as well. Now, as far as the young actor who played Mowgli, I believe his name is Neel Sethi. One thing I have to say when it comes to child actors, especially using a child actor as the main protagonist of a movie, it can be really hard to sell it. And while for the most part, this movie is obviously targeted towards a younger audience, for adults, they most of the time can't grasp on to a younger actor being the main protagonist, because one of two things can happen. The actor themselves won't have much experience and can't convey the emotion that on the same level as a full-fledged actor can. And then even if they can, to some adults, a child actor can come across as very annoying. Well, I'm delighted to say that Neel Sethi played Mowgli very well. This is his first feature film in his entire acting career, and it's a challenge. I think in some way it benefited having a child doing this kind of feat they were going to try to do as far as incorporating CG into everything, is because in order to be an actor and act with basically just a green wall and having to interact with nothing that's in front of you, if there's a CG animated character that they're trying to interact with, for even some adult actors, that's something that's hard to get across. So I think it came more naturally to Neel only because he's a child and he has an active imagination, and so the director can tell him essentially what's going on, and he can make it work just essentially with how he emotes those feelings. And again, without getting too much into spoilers, as far as the storytelling and how the plot moves along in this movie, it's very by the book, kind of just straight to the point kind of stuff, because it is intended for kids and younger audiences. So there's not very little time is spent on exposition and backstory and all that stuff. Stuff happens in order, and it happens rather quickly. Now I get that many people who are into movies are really getting tired of remakes in general, and that's something I can entirely understand. So when it comes to my viewpoint on remakes, I essentially look at one factor, and it's this: did the remake in any way, shape, or form improve upon what it was remaking? So in other words, does this 2016 version even come close to comparing to the 1967 version, or is even better than it in many ways? Well, I can honestly say many people are going to have favorites. Nostalgia is going to beat out a lot of stuff when it comes to criticizing this movie. But I can say, if you're a relatively young person and you haven't even seen the 1967 Jungle Book, young people will latch onto this movie and think it's the best thing ever. That's something I can definitely almost guarantee. Now, as someone, and again, I'm somewhat a little bit biased because, again, the original Jungle Book is not one of, it wasn't my all-time favorite, Disney movie, and I thought it was okay. It wasn't anywhere in my top 5 list of best classic Disney movies. But I think as far as how it decided to adapt first the novel it was based on, and then trying to live up to the old one, I think it did pretty good. One thing to also consider is the runtime of the movie. They had a little bit more time to flesh out some of the characters. Like I said, the plot from the 1967 version and this one are almost the same, but as far as how they convey the emotion and how they convey the dialogue and other stuff that happens and occurs in this film, it does improve upon it does improve upon based on the old one, as far as just general movie making type of things like cinematography, script writing, dialogue, acting, whatever you want to call it. As far as a few negatives about this movie, some people who were fans of the original may go into this movie and be slightly disappointed about mainly the screen time for certain characters in the movie. I felt watching the movie that the character Ka, the big giant snake, could have used a little bit more time in the movie, just because of how sinister she is and just how it was very cool, that whole scene. I thought with the snake, but that character's entire point was just to give a little bit of exposition and then to have a sudden, immediately switch motives just right at the end. And that's similar to how it happened in the old movie, but some people may go in disappointed about just how short time that character is on screen. I will also say that the movie did a couple of things that I thought were a little bit awkward. First of all, this is not a musical, unlike the old one, but there were times where they did like a few scene, I don't know what to call it, just kind of like very scene-songy parts. There's like a time where they sing like a few lines of the bare necessities, and then and King Louie, who's voiced by Christopher Walken, there's a point in the movie where King Louie sings, and some people may find that kind of interesting, as far as like, oh my gosh, it's Christopher Walken, who did a very good job, by the way, as far as the voice acting component. But there's a part where they start to sing, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it threw the whole pacing of the movie off, and I don't know why that happened. It's just, and they did it even towards the end of the movie, and I was like, why did they want to do that? Was that something decided on by the makers of the movie, or was that something like Christopher Walken just wanted to throw in there? I have no idea, but it was just totally, that some people may find that very cool to hear, or to witness, but I thought it was just kind of out of place, and that was just my opinion. Also, you have to keep in mind as far as what the feat they were trying to do with this movie, and the fact that 95% of it is CG, and then you have the young child actor that's trying to react to everything. So there's a few instances where there may be some type of lost connection between what the voice actors are doing as far as how they're reading the lines, and then what Neel is acting in real life. So there can sometimes feel like a disconnect. as far as how the emotions are being conveyed. And then also not to mention the fact that it is his first film, and there are times where he may sometimes lose focus. I swear, I think I caught it like a couple of times where he came like this close to looking directly at the camera, like straight at it, and I was like, oh no, like I mean, it was very subtle, but it almost happened, but not completely. So you can tell as far as that instances, they may have had some struggles with that, but considering that this is Neel's first film, I thought this is incredible what they achieved here. So as far as what I can recommend for this movie, I would say if you're a parent and you want to take your child to go see a film, Jungle Book is a pretty good film to go take them. And if you're an adult who just wants to go for nostalgia purposes or try and compare it to the original Jungle Book, I encourage you to go as well. The theater, many people talk about it's a very diverse amount of people who went to go see this movie, both young and old. So I think that's very cool. As far as any kind of rating I can give the Jungle Book, I'll give it like about an 85%. Very, very good, impressive, especially for a remake, if that makes any sense, and considering the quality of remakes we've been kind of getting as far as what Disney throws out there. It's probably one of the best ones I've seen, so that's something to take into consideration. So anyway, that's my review for the Jungle Book. I hope you enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for more.